In Paul's journey in a ship and how the Lord strategically maneuvered him in a terrible storm to work for Paul's good. Paul had been arrested for preaching the gospel and was being taken across the Mediterranean to stand trial in Rome. The journey by sea was difficult, and Paul tried to convince his captors not to keep sailing, but they didn't listen. A storm hit and it got worse. It got worse for 3 days, to the point that the people on the ship began throwing cargo overboard to lighten the load. The other prisoners and soldiers began to fear for their lives. But Paul shared with them a word from the Lord. He told them an angel had appeared to him and told him not to be afraid, because he and everyone sailing with him would make it to their destination. He told them to take courage, because he had trusted God to do just what he said. I'm sure it was difficult for them to trust the word of a prisoner, but at that point, what choice did they have? After being tossed to and fro for 14 days, they were finally shipwrecked, and parts of the ship began to break up in the water. The soldiers considered killing the prisoners so they couldn't escape, but Paul let them know that if they did that, they themselves wouldn't survive. You see, Paul knew the grace that was over his life. He knew that as long as he was on board, they would all make it to safety, because the Lord had told them that they would. So the officer told everybody who could swim to go ahead and swim for it, while everybody else was to find a plank or other piece of wood to help them float to safety. Maybe there have been times when you've experienced a shipwreck in your life. I'm sure there have been times when you felt like you would drown under all the pressure, but you're still here. Maybe you didn't have the strength to swim, but you still made it to shore on those broken pieces of the ship. The fact is, what you thought would take you under has been the very thing to get you where you are right now. That shipwreck was terrifying, but it brought you to your destined place. You survived it. You survived it all, and you made it to the other side because of the promise that's over your life. Maybe you've been through a storm, or are in the midst of a storm, or are getting ready to go through a storm. Whatever the case, you will make it because of the one who watches over you, watches over your life. You will survive.